Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of How They Started Their Tech Careers. Today we have someone who has been like a CNCF ambassador, and she also created 100 Days of Kubernetes. That's how I know her. She also has been a developer advocate, and she puts out amazing DevOps content. Please join me and welcome Anais. Hey Anais, would you like to give yourself
Hello.
a short introduction?
Sure. It's actually the first time that somebody gave me this kind of lengthy introduction. Listening to somebody say all those things I'm apparently doing, I'm like, wow, that's me. um, so this is pretty cool. Yeah, my name is Anais. I'm currently working as site reliability engineer for a company called Civo Cloud, which is a cloud computing provider that's based on Kubernetes specifically. So if you're interested in getting started with Kubernetes, that's the tool, the platform to use. Yeah, otherwise, I'm a CNCF ambassador. I started in the DevOps space 10 months ago. I think that's an important part. I started in the DevOps space 10 months ago. And before that, I was working in the blockchain space. So I actually, when you see anything that I'm doing, I just started learning about it. So if I can do it, you can do it too.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. And yeah, you are doing a great job like with making your learnings public and like
Thank you.
documenting your journey. I think it helps, especially like someone like me. I wasn't like I've heard about Kubernetes and
Yeah.
containerization and stuff, I think almost a year ago, but like nothing wanted me to like dive right into it. And when I
Yeah.
saw your content and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like this is what I need because you need a guide to follow along. Like you
Yeah.
there's just so much stuff out there. Like if you just not even Google, if you just go to YouTube and type in like Kubernetes, there'll be I think like hundreds of videos. So there's no structure to like a guided plan on how to get started from day one and like how to kind of implement it and learn
Totally.
in a structured format. But yeah, no, I love what you have been doing. And it's great to like just know that you were in blockchain as a I think a developer advocate and then
Yeah.
a community manager and then you moved into DevOps. So we will get into it, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
really like fascinating and interesting to see like a non-traditional career path.
No, non-traditional at all. I jumped the career path. But it's funny that you mentioned it because I started, and I told that on several different shows. I started 100 Days of Kubernetes because I saw you doing 100 Days of Cloud. And I was like, oh, if people doing it like on cloud, then I
Mhm.
surely can do it on Kubernetes too, right?
Yeah.
Like before, I once tried to do 100 days of code to learn
Mhm.
front-end
Mhm.
development, and then I didn't finish it, but I knew that that was a thing, that there was a large community around it, but I didn't know until I saw your posts that it's the same for cloud. And then
Yeah.
I thought, hey, let's just start it for Kubernetes.
Yeah, that is the exact same thought like me and the other core team members had is, oh, there's 100 days of code. And similarly, like I haven't finished 100 days of code. Like I know I started at some point and then at day 30 or something, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I can't keep up. Um,
Yeah.
and
It's
then
about the journey. It's not about finishing. It's about
exactly.
trying to do it
Yeah.
and learning in the process. Yeah.
No, for sure, for sure. So I think I'll like to like deviate towards a bit of a background. Like when you were young, were you like really into tech, or this is something that gradually grew on you?
Yeah. So I have to really call out my parents here, I think, because actually, so my father is a computer programmer, software programmer, and we had always lots of old hardware at home. And for me, those were more like props. Like I would use old hardware to build spaceships and other cool stuff in my
Nice.
imagination. But I never like I didn't. Those were not the kind of parents who would get me cool stuff that would get me into programming, right? Like it was kind of gender oriented. So
Mhm.
I didn't start programming until until I went to college, until I went
Okay.
to university. So until then I I never wrote a program or anything, and nobody really introduced me to it. It was really when I had to make a choice of where do I want to go, which
Mhm.
university do I want to choose, which kind of course do I want to choose for university. That's when I started thinking about it. And fast forward, I dropped out of my first degree to go into from a degree called information management to go into computer science and also to start working. So it was really, it wasn't even that the degree that got me into it. It was more like the thought process of what do I want to spend my life doing, more or less. So yeah.
That's awesome. And that's like really non-traditional part about your journey is, I know I saw your one of the YouTube videos about your journey so far in tech, and like you worked while you were doing your degree, and I think you have been in the industry for almost like 3 or 4 years, if I'm right.
Yeah, for almost 4 years now. So I dropped out because I had friends working in a blockchain space and they were like, oh, join us. We would like, and most of them were like, just drop your degree, join us right now, and we will pay you. Just don't do a degree. That was their premise. They were like, you can't do both. Just do, just work for us and help us grow this project in the blockchain space. And I didn't want to do it. I really wanted to get, and I still want to get, I don't have it yet. I still want to get my computer science degree. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna study part-time, work full-time. And eventually I found a company that I joined. And yeah, so that was nearly 4 years ago. Yeah.
No, that is awesome. So like, what was your first job in tech? Was it the blockchain one, like the developer advocacy?
So, I mean, when we talk about jobs in tech, that could be really any role you have within tech, I think, because whatever you do, you will, especially at startups, you will have in some way or another, you will have to learn about the project itself and the platform or the tools that I use, right? So my first job was as technical analyst. So I was literally reading white papers in the blockchain space. There were lots at the time. It was like the crypto bubble. That's what it was called. And there were like the .com bubble, but crypto, right? And there were lots of white papers, and I was just reading them, summarizing what those projects were proposing and looking if their tech would make sense based on what other projects were doing in the space. It was a lot of comparison, a lot of trying to understand what kind of algorithms in the space are used and which ones make sense and why one project uses one algorithm over another and these kind of things. So it was really a lot of report writing, and yeah, it was really theoretical. It wasn't hands-on at all, my first job. Yeah, it was all theoretical.
And like you learned on your way, right? You were not interested in blockchain from like the beginning.
Yeah, so it was really before, and you like some parts of what the technology was about, but through that role specifically, I mean, you have to think about this. I was, now people will learn my age. So I was basically 19, dropping out, right? Wanting to get a job, working for this startup that was also just starting out, right? They didn't have much of a reputation at that point. In the space. So I was just trying to find my way through and find people who would, boost my, how do you call it? Like my credibility in this space, right? So that's what it was about. So given that I really had to try to get as much credibility as possible, I was trying obviously to learn as much as possible about tech. So in calls and so on, I was able to follow. So it was basically me pretending I was way ahead of where I was actually starting out from.
And so, and this is the time when you were also like doing your information system degree, or this is when you dropped out?
That was right after I dropped out. So I dropped out, and after my 4th semester, I dropped out, and then I started the following semester in my 1st semester computer science degree.
Oh, okay.
So and since it's part-time, it's taking like 4 to 6 years to finish.
I can totally relate. So yeah, like to get into like education, I'm guessing like you really wanted to have a degree in computer science. But yeah, we are seeing this shift in like where it's not necessary, and like there are folks that are saying like you don't need to spend like so much amount of money and time in getting a degree. You can start in tech before that. And it might not be necessary. And I think you're like a perfect example. Like you can start, but if you like really want to get it for your own sake, you can still do that while doing a full-time job, which is great, I think, because especially like in North America, I think education is really expensive.
Oh
I'm not,
yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure about Europe so much, but yeah,
It depends where in Europe, but yeah.
yeah, it can be hard, especially for like teenagers like me. When I was 18, that's why I chose a college over a university, because I'm
Yeah.
like, there is no way I can pay or take a student
What's the
loan.
difference in the US?
Um,
Just
I
for
don't know about
myself and other listeners. I don't know the difference.
I don't know about US, but I know it's really expensive. I think Gwen would be a better person to ask about US
Okay.
or Antonio. But for Canada, I think as an international student,
Yeah.
it was around 10 grand a semester. So like
That's a
20,000.
lot.
Yeah, that was a
That's like
lot.
what you would pay in the UK, for example, for one entire degree
Exactly.
in
And
some
that's what I'm
cases.
doing right now um is a part-time online computer science degree.
Yeah.
And it almost comes to what I would have paid for an year. Like the entire
Yeah.
degree is, yeah, almost the same amount what I would have paid for an year. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, that
I
is.
think that shows options. See, like when people are considering university or college or whatever certification they want to get, that there are so many different options. And I didn't know that an online degree was possible when I first chose my university, right? Like I thought that's something you have to go to in person. And so that's one thing. And what you mentioned earlier about, I completely agree. You don't have to get a degree to start in tech. I'm one of those examples, right? Nobody in the past 4 years has asked me about my degree or whether I have one or to show it or anything related. It's really something that I'm doing for myself, because you have to consider that having a degree, a bachelor's degree, can open up a lot of opportunities later on in life.
For sure.
Let's assume you want to do research. You can get access to research facilities that you cannot get access to if you don't have a degree, right? If you don't have a bachelor's degree, you can't do a research master, you can't do a PhD, you can't go into that area if you want to. If that's something you want to do, then and that's kind of why I want to leave my options open. Like that was personally my decision why I decided I still want to get a degree, even though it's not necessary for industry related work, right?
No, for sure. And it might seem like, especially like with this social media world, especially Twitter and YouTube, that's what I'm most active on. It might seem like we have it all figured out. I especially don't. Like and as you said, I try to keep my options like open. You never know where your interest and like passion would go.
Exactly.
So if you have those options, it's good. Like I don't want to be specific in what I do. At least not for the near future. Maybe like 2-3 years, I'm fine where I am. But yeah, you never know. But yeah, no, that's amazing. So you were in blockchain as developer advocate and community manager, and then you got into like DevOps SRE world, and Kubernetes came along. How was that switch? Like how did that happen?
So that's a bit of a longer story. The short form is that I joined the most recent startup in the blockchain space that I worked for. I worked for them over a year, and I joined as developer advocate. But a few months after I joined, our community manager left, and it was kind of left hanging there, right? Like it was kind of all those activities that are community management related. They were just there for somebody to pick up. So since at that point my technical abilities weren't that great, and I just want to get as like be productive and an asset for the company as much as possible, I just picked it all up, right? I just tried to do whatever I could to help the company grow and succeed in the space. So I was ultimately becoming the community manager, and the goal was always for me to transition more into their developer relations team and help with developer advocacy and building out features for some of the users. But that didn't quite happen for various reasons. It's quite tough in the blockchain space, especially for women, and especially like in the tech industry, I mean, overall, but then in the blockchain space, it's quite niche with even more of a gender difference, let's say. So I was getting to the point where I was getting frustrated, where I didn't feel like I was growing in the right direction in those areas that I want to grow in. So I was keeping my eyes open, and then Code Fresh, the company I first worked for in the DevOps space, interviewed me. They reached out, and it was quite random that they reached out to me. It wasn't like they were looking for somebody to join their developer advocacy team, and they just happened to come across my profile pretty much. And then I provided some example work. That's actually one of the tips I would give. Always, if they don't ask you for example work, still provide example work, because that can make such a difference. And it's, I mean, in engineering interviews, you tend to have to do example work by default, or you have to do those live coding things on a billboard where everybody puts you on the spot or something. But that's usually not the case in many other roles. So if you want to go for a role and then they don't ask you to provide example work, that you can make a huge difference for their decision process if you still provide them anything that is that represents what you would be doing. Exactly. Just for anybody watching, that's like my number one tip. If you want to get ahead of other candidates, do that.
For sure.
Yeah. So
would you suggest like having projects and stuff on your resume like that you want to highlight that is like really relevant to your job role?
But make it really relevant and highlight what you got out of it. So for example, I wouldn't just put GitHub something, right? Or like these projects that highlight a specific project, and maybe if it got a lot of stars, highlight that, right? Or if you learn something specific within that project, or that project has something like a specific implementation that might be relevant to what you will be doing at your job, right? Then highlight that specifics of what is within that project that makes it so valuable, right?
For sure.
To make it as clear as possible, because obviously many recruiters won't know what's important. So if you can make it even sound really important, then that's already good, right? But
no, that's one of the things, like it is like really good when you learn in community, is because you're sharing your journey, and maybe you had something like a breakthrough during that journey, a project, or some like a video that went viral, and it is nice to like share that with your like employer, whoever you're interviewing with, and showing like what kind of impact it made in the community. I know like there are a lot of companies that care about that. But no, that is a great tip for someone who's like looking for a job right now or is applying to multiple jobs. So we went through the education kind of path, and like, so you're almost done your degree, right?
I need like, I need like 1 year.
Okay.
1 more year. I have 1 year left.
Okay. So
I hope.
That is nice. So you are planning to like going further down the path of like education, like a master's degree, or have you like thought about it for now, or
so I try not to think about it too much, because there's obviously a lot of ifs involved that I can't plan for as much. I definitely want to go further down into the engineering areas path. So a lot of times you have engineers transitioning into developer advocacy, and for me it was always this: how do I get further into engineering? How can I acquire more skills and get more opportunities in the engineering space versus the community management and marketing side of things, right? So for me, like now that I have kind of my foot in this SRE role, it's like it's really important for me to keep it there. So we will see what the next year or the next 2 years bring. But I think especially, and that's like being completely blunt here, if you're a woman in tech, you can have more impact, the way I perceive it, if you have those credentials. And just more of you can easier stand up for yourself in different areas, whether that's salary rise, whether that's opportunity rise. But that's my personal take, and being completely blunt about it. I don't support it, obviously, but being completely blunt about it, right? I'm not gonna say that that bias doesn't exist, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a downside, I would say. Like you need to show that you're credible in a way,
Yeah.
being like women in tech, and yeah, it's there are
I
some
mean, you should
downsides
show
in
it
tech.
either way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you might get questioned more.
So how would you say, like, what have been like the key highlights of your journey in tech so far, like
Yeah.
in these 4 years? What do you think, like, what are the things that you're most proud of?
I think it was, so we just mentioned it, right? Working in public, having
Mhm.
public, like work that is publicly available for
Yep.
anybody to view is really important. And when I finished my first role in the blockchain space as technical analyst, I did this whole week where I was writing each day. I was writing on one specific topic, and it was kind of like a brain dump. Everything I knew on this topic, I just
Mhm.
put down. I just wrote it down without much structure, just as much as I could fit in that one day on a document. Basically, you can also right now find it on my blog. But the point is that because I did that, I then had somebody from another company reach out, and who in the end ended up hiring me for developer advocate, because that person saw, oh, she knows the theory. She might not know how to develop decentralized applications on a blockchain, but she knows the theory behind it. And at the time when I wrote it, I obviously didn't have any intention of using it to get myself a job. It was that person seeing it and reaching out to me. So when we talk, I think when we talk about getting lucky in tech, there's a lot of things that you can do to accelerate your luck, let's say, right?
Yeah.
You can't control who's going to end up looking at your portfolio, at your work, right? Or who's going to recommend you to whom. But there's a lot of things that you can influence on a small basis as well, right? And I think that was one highlight of them reaching out, literally because I published those thoughts, that knowledge, those theories or ideas that I had in my brain. What else? The other one was definitely becoming a CNCF ambassador. I was kind of dropped into their Slack channel, and I just opened Slack because I got some notification. I was like, who's messaging me right now? I was like, wow, I'm in this channel. Am I supposed to see this? And that was quite overwhelming, because I did not have that same kind of support in any, or similar even, in any form in the blockchain space. It was consistently like me kind of really pushing for being seen and getting support and opportunities. Even speaking opportunities were so difficult to get, because you have actually a lot of people in the blockchain space working on similar kind of topics, and it's usually always the same people who speak on those topics, and conferences will try to get the same people, and it's really difficult to break into that. So just getting the support from the DevOps community was incredible. Like, that was mind-blowing to me. It's still mind-blowing to me how supportive everybody is.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is one of the the great things about like Twitter and stuff, is if you're learning in public, there are so many amazing folks and like people that support you and like uplift you.
Yeah.
Even like I remember when I was like kind of lost and I didn't know where to go. As I said, like I started 100 Days of Code and I was like, I don't know if I want to get into software development at all. And yeah, like and people knew that I'm struggling, so I reached out, and they there are some amazing people that are willing to help you and like uplift you, and that is one like great thing of learning in public.
Totally.
Yeah, no, that's some great like motivation. Whoever is listening, is like how you kind of, I know like there was no much support in the blockchain world, and you enter like the DevOps kind of world, and CNCF Ambassador is like a huge deal. But yeah,
is it? No,
for us it is. Like we are happy for you, and
thank you. It's sometimes I'm trying to put things into perspective, right? Of like, yeah, I mean, going back to actually reaching out to people, I remember when I was reaching out to you and I was like, what is this 100 Days of Cloud thing? What do I do? where do you get this information from? And most of the time when they, like, sometimes I reach out to people really, really coldly of like, can we just have a call about career opportunities, career growth? Just because I'm interested in somebody's thoughts, right? And like probably 80% of the cases you will get a really nice reply. It's usually people will provide you with a really nice reply or take their time if you are taking your time to ask thoughtful questions, right? And yeah, people are really welcoming and kind. So I think it's when you're like when you're thinking of, a lot of people think of, should I go into DevOps, right? Or should I go into that tech area or this tech area, right? And I'm not quite sure which direction they should go, especially when you have done a degree and then you are figuring out which way to specialize in, right? When you do a boot camp, you usually already kind of know which areas you want to specialize in, because that's based on what you chose that boot camp. But after a computer science degree, you can literally do anything. And I think it's important to remember that every space within the tech industry has its own pros and cons, right? So if somebody enters one space and it might not be the right thing for them, they're like at least 50 other areas in tech to try out, and a billion other companies that might be exactly what would work for you, right? Versus it's really sad to see when people leave the tech industry, right, overall, because it's usually not the tech industry but a specific area, specific community, right, that made it unwelcoming or not as exciting as it could be.
No, for sure. I think in certain cases, or not in certain cases, like if you're starting out and you like did your degree and you're like fresh graduate, either from like a traditional university or a boot camp. With a boot camp, you're more boot camps are more drilled down because they're really specific, like either web dev or general software programming. I don't know what kind of other boot camps we have now, but
lots. There's one for everything.
It's growing a lot. But I think learning in public would help you, as like Anais said, that she was reached out on one of her blog posts that her like a prospect employer saw and thought like she would be a great fit because like she wrote this blog post and she could help their developer advocacy team in getting the word out of whatever the product was at that time. And it has been kind of similar for me, even though I've been at the same company for like, this is a company that I started my first job at, and I've been there still. But last year when I started learning and doing in public, like I can't tell like how many recruiters and like companies would reach out to you. And it's just good because you never know like what like option or what opportunity might come your way that you might have missed if you're not learning in public, right? And
exactly.
There might be like several different folks who are in like the same boots as you or same shoes, which you might help them because let's say like Anais is doing 100 days of Kubernetes. Now I know like where to start at day one. So that's the community aspect of it when you like do it in public. And it also makes it stick, like especially if you're teaching people, like the concepts stick with you because you're able to explain them to others. So I think that's a great tip. So what are you excited about, like with the technologies that are coming in the near future? I know like crypto is going crazy again, and then we do have IoT.
I'm like, oh no.
No, we do have other technologies like AI, ML, and IoT. Like, what are you excited about?
So I always wanted to get into security infosec field. I'm not sure anymore if that's really my thing to spend like full time there or like to really focus on it. It's just as a research area, let's say that's what fascinates me. But I'm really excited for what's just the cloud native Kubernetes space is still so young, and there's so many new projects that are kind of rewriting how we deploy infrastructure, how we deploy software. And that's really exciting to me, those new patterns and processes that are getting established especially by young and small teams that are doing, I think, the highest impact. And so that's something I'm excited about. And then also just, I see, like I joined the space, the DevOps space, during the current times, right? I have met nobody on my Twitter in person, like none of them, nobody I'm interacting with, I know in person, always like from the screen, right? So I'm really excited for the first in-person conferences where I get to meet people and see how tall they are. So yeah, so that's something I'm excited about. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited about tech conferences too. I'm like, yeah, let's get back to normal.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's amazing. So what is it like? What tip would you give to the audience? I know we have like really amazing tips in our previous chats, but like if we wanted to give one amazing, like, I don't know, tip or suggestion to someone who is starting out in tech, what would that be?
I think so. A lot of times when you get started, it feels you don't know where to start, right? I think that's the most common problem. You are not sure what to look at first. And I think it's far more important to start looking at anything, start reading or writing about anything really that interests you. And then just some Google searches or looking at some people on Twitter or some newsletters and podcasts that can give you further hints on what to look at next. Just anything, start there. Like it doesn't matter where you start as long as you start to look at anything. I think a lot of times people over worry what they should be doing first, where should they spend their time at, and by them worrying about where should I get started, I don't know what to do, it's actually preventing them to get started in the first place. So I think that's my number one tip, that there are lots of resources, and once you start looking at those resources, any resource, you will figure out what you like, what you don't like, what you want to learn more about, what you don't want to learn more about, right? And then you can take it from there versus worrying in the moment before getting started, what should I do first? Because there's no one answer that anybody could give you, right? I don't know where your level's at. You don't know what somebody has read before or what they want to learn or whether they need it for their job or if it's just their personal interest. All those are questions, right? That only a really good mentor could know about you and then recommend you a specific book or something, right? If nobody is like your mentor for several months, then they can't really give you that detail, that level of information of where to get started, I think.
No, for sure. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Like, don't like do your research, but like don't get lost into it, and just start out and see what works for you and figure it out on the way. Because like, and especially in tech, like things change so rapidly. So just start with one of the resources that you think might work for you, and then figure it out on the way. That is this something that you want to do in the long run? No, that is a great tip. No, that was a really nice conversation we had here.
Awesome.
I do have a kind of few rapid questions for you.
Okay.
So like you have to answer them right away.
Okay, I will try.
Okay, cool. I just have two for you.
Okay.
First one being, what do you prefer? Like, do you prefer Windows, Mac, or Linux?
Linux.
Okay, awesome. Okay, and what programming language do you prefer or love?
React.
Okay. So you're really into JavaScript, I'm guessing.
No, I like to use TypeScript.
Okay.
I should have said TypeScript. Yeah.
Awesome. And do you prefer a PC or a laptop?
Laptop.
Okay.
I should switch to a laptop from a PC, and I love it. I can walk around.
The portability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, that was really nice conversation.
Thank you for having me. This was
No, it was
great.
It was really fun, and it was nice to know like about the challenges you had. And all.
I could talk for hours about that. If somebody wants to listen for hours, just hit me up, and I can just carry on.
We should do
talking.
like a weekly career rant.
Oh yeah. Oh, that sounds great. Just to show where we just rant about. Yeah. That's a good idea.
It's good for like even for like anxiety and stress too, because
Totally. And it's also for other people, right?
Yep.
There's actually I forgot what it's called. Harvard and MIT, they have this club where they just share
Okay.
complete failures. That's all they do.
Nice.
And a friend told me about it. I thought it was amazing. It's,
Yeah.
I think, even an online meetup, like a society kind of like I don't know what I think it's just a meetup group where they literally just share complete failures. Whether there's a business or career failures, anything career related that was a failure. Yeah.
We should do that like every Friday, because Fridays are
That's
almost
oops
end
or
of the week.
something. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, this was really nice. Thank you.
And yeah, for the audience, we will catch up with you in the next episode. And yeah, I don't know who the guest would be, but we'll reveal it soon.
Oh, I'm excited.
Thanks. Thanks for joining, Anais, and it was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a lovely day, everybody.
Awesome.